All right, thank you everyone for coming to this town hall. We really appreciate everyone being here. To put a tournament like this, it takes so many people, you know, captains, the players, partners, babysitters, sponsors, the taco stand. It really takes like a village to hopefully build something special for our community. So just want to, first of all, just start this off by just giving a thank you to all those that are here and all those that are going to be listening to the recording. We'll be posting this up on YouTube. So even if you can't make it today or want to re-listen to anything that you missed, you'll have that opportunity. So we want to take some time to give an overview of the tournament, some announcements, review the rules, and then provide a Q&A and a space to kind of clarify anything that comes to mind. So if you have a question as we go through any of this info, then just drop it in the Zoom chat and we'll address all the questions at the end. And let me just preface that, we're all Malayali and we have a lot of strong opinions on how things should be done. And we want to hear all those thoughts and those challenges, but to remember to just give each other some grace that we're all trying to build something meaningful here that's hopefully more than just football. And in the grand scheme of things and the competition that really matters, we're we're all on the same team here. So I just want to open up in a word of prayer before we kick things off. So, in the name of Father, Son, Holy Spirit, Heavenly Father, thank you for bringing us all here today. Thank you for everything you've given us. Thank you for our families, for our friends, for this community. Please be with us here today. Be with us here now. Fill us with your love and fill us with your wisdom. Guide our discussion today and help us to build something that is meaningful to you. And help us to love one another as you love us. We ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen.
So a few months ago, we had a tragedy. We lost Josh Pathai. He was the QB of the Zero team, and he led the team to two championships. He was a fierce competitor, full of energy, and had a strong love for the game. And even off the field, he was an amazing leader and teammate and friend. So for this tournament, we are dedicating it to his memory. And before we get into things, I wanted to invite Justin, one of his good friends, to just say a few words about Josh and give us a sense of if you didn't get a chance to meet him or the honor of knowing him, just to help give a sense of to all of us of who he was and better honor his memory. So I'll invite Justin.
All right, thanks, John. Yeah, uh, me and Josh, we were good friends since high school. Started playing basketball and then slowly got into football. And through like even basketball, I knew like he's a very fierce competitor. Like he put everything into it. And our first year I played with Josh was the winter tournament in I can't remember exactly what year, but we only had five people on that team, and he still had complete faith. He pushed us to our max, and just playing with him, I knew like there was always a chance. Like whether it was like he uplifted us when we needed that, and always made sure to be critical when we needed to be. Um, but going from that. And now, after that, I think a year or two later, he joined the summer team, and then he was just kept that competitive spirit within him. And he would tell me stories about how he would talk to Jibu, on his off days, talking about what he can improve on, or whether it be any of the team captains. Really, like he had a really strong focus, and he was determined, really with everything in his life. And I'm sure everybody can see that on the field. Um, he's just a great teammate, great person to be around. Um, but yeah, he really motivated everybody around him, especially me. Like our last tournament, last winter tournament, like he every day, like every other week, like he'd call me and make sure we're, working out, make sure we're getting plays, writing up plays, figuring out what we need to do. Like he's just that type of person, just keep, checking on people and like making sure everybody's on the same page. And yeah, just a great overall teammate and competitive, player. Yeah, it's just a few words, but yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Justin. So we talked to Josh's mom, lovely Chichi, and to see if there was a charity that meant something to her that she would like to support, or that we could help support on Josh's behalf. And so she chose Willow House. So it's based up in Lincolnshire, just north of Chicago, and it provides free grief support for those who lost a loved one. So it's a charity that really means a lot to lovely JG, and it means a lot to us to be able to support it. So thank you all for being here and being part of this tournament, being part of this community, because everything we do will be helping to support this cause. And with that, I'll pass it off to Jomi.
Thanks, Sean. So just a couple slides on just, who we are, what our role is as the board, as captains and leaders of the MFL, and just athletes, to kind of define, our expectation, our hope. So starting with us as the board, and what is our mission to serve as a medium to help build strong bonds for both men and women within and between Malaya Christian churches through the game of flag football. For those who have played for a long time, definitely we were very football centric in the earlier years, and maybe even, up until a couple of years ago. And I think our desire as a board is to continue to grow the fellowship piece to help, tie the community together, to be a support for each other, to help each other grow and develop in a lot of ways, in many ways, personally, professionally, to support each other in ways outside of sports. So, kind of in that vein, some things that we're starting up this summer and, later in the year, MFL TED Talks. And that's a series of, professionals and experts in and outside of our community that are just going to speak to things that they can add value on. So definitely like our sponsors, Steve the Realtor, Yev, and Tom Sunny in financial advising, but also folks who just are experts in their industry. So keep an eye out for that. And then some other activities that we're working on. We've been putting together a series to or method to connect our community with mentors, with folks in the community that can help, whether it's professionally or, share experiences on how they achieved a certain goal. So it's a broad group, and we're looking to, share them and help connect those people with our community, with our athletes. And also working on a series focusing on women in leadership. So for that topic specifically, and actually for all of these, if there's someone that you can think of off the top of your head that stands out in any one of these three areas, please reach out, help connect us with them. There's a lot of amazing people in our community, and those of us on the board don't know them all, don't have access to them all. But if you can, help connect us, please reach out. You can shoot us an email or connect with us on Instagram. Sean, next slide, please, or Jess. So some of the things that we wanted to review, especially for the new leaders in the MFL community, some things that are core or centric to the board, the MFL, and that come to life through the captains and leadership. Obviously, we want to continue living the vision and mission, building and focusing on fellowship within the team and the church. This next bullet point is probably the most common complaint I hear from people who had a bad experience or who choose not to come back after a season. I didn't know that if I came to every practice and I worked hard and I didn't get to play in the tournament. Just making sure that all of our athletes have a really good understanding of what the expectation is and what the outcomes are, whether it's around playing time, which is usually a hot topic, or just other things. Invest in your team outside of football. what you get is what you prioritize, right? And if we're going to build a strong community, it's absolutely critical that, our team leaders are, leading that charge within each church and making sure that, we understand that our community is more important than one game, than one Sunday, than or one Saturday, or than any single tournament. Provide the opportunity for mentorship. I say this because I look around and I think there's some amazing leaders as captains, and sometimes we, just through our own humility, are shy or tentative or hesitant to say, "Hey, if I went through what you're going through, I achieved, X, Y, and Z professionally, and I can share my roadmap with you." Sometimes just putting ourselves out there requires some vulnerability. So if and when you're comfortable, and even if you're a little uncomfortable, I want to encourage you guys to and gals to offer it. And you never know what kind of conversations that leads to. Support the team's faith journey. This is important in so many ways. And I'll actually circle back to this point. Lastly, to share and delegate to those who have a passion to help. There's a phrase I read just today, actually, that I thought was really meaningful. We're always leading. The question is where to? And in some cases, we have really strong leaders who are, very football centric, very sports centric, and some of these other things may be a challenge for you or for me. But there's a lot of people, each of our teams that are very competent, very capable, very passionate. We just have to ask, hey, I need help, coordinating the next team event, the next offsite, the next, Bible study, the next prayer session, whatever that may be. I think every team, every community has got people who are able and competent and happy and excited to help. We just got to ask. So I know this is a lot, but this isn't all for one person. And that's specifically why, I changed the title of this slide from captain to leader. There's a lot of ways we can lead and guide, and it doesn't have to be just the captain or the coach of the team that does that or provides that. Um, and when I look across the board, I hear a lot of amazing things that are happening in each of our church communities, each of our teams. So I want to ask if there's something that your team is doing that you really appreciate, throw it in the chat. I think it's great for us to hear some of those wins and successes and methods to grow our team from a fellowship perspective. Next slide, please, Jess. So I'm not sure if Mikey is on.
Hey, Joe Mima.
Okay, fantastic. With short notice, I was kind of inspired this morning to reach out and ask the Zero team to kind of share some of the things that they're doing. My plan is to ask every team, every time we have a town hall or event, to share something like this, just to give kind of an overview of, what does their summer tournament journey look like? What are some of the things that they're doing? Some of the in-season, out-of-season type activities. So we can, share our wins and help each other, grow and invest in our community. So with that, I want to hand it off to Mikey from the Zero team, who's going to talk a little bit about some of the things that the Zero team does in any given season. Mikey.
Hey, team. So when these kind of changes started about like 5 years ago, we're kind of at a crossroads as a team, and some of this is probably gonna be repetitive from last year, but I'll go through the stuff from a little bit faster from last year and get into the newer stuff. But about 5 years ago, we had decided as a team. A lot of the older folks were retiring. We had a lot of injuries, so we had to kind of decide as a team like what path do we want to go. So we added some new leaders. Some of the younger leaders stepped up, and from that, a lot of good ideas came to fruition, focusing on attendance at practice, focusing on culture. And from a competitive perspective, we had a rough couple of years transitioning to that. For 3 years, we weren't, I would say, typically of where we would expect ourselves to be. But through that, learning after those several years and like prioritizing getting to know each other better through these things I'm going to mention, we ended up everything kind of falls where they may. Like it's like us focusing more so on the culture and fellowship. We like it didn't matter. Like winning and losing was not necessarily our primary focus anymore. But we won, right? But it was just more of a circumstance. It was a cherry on top. But it's not our primary focus. For years, the Zero program was just focused on winning. regardless of the impact it had on culture. And sure, there's trophies that represent those championships, but right now where we are as a team, I can't think of the year in the prior years where our culture has been better than it is now. And some of the things that have driven that are one, just making sure the team is heard. So anytime we're making decisions, letting the team vote, having a very democratic versus like a dictatorship type of format, which allows people on the team from all ages to be involved in decision making, which is important. Um, Having things that are less focused on football and events, because if you think about it in the MFL, there's 2 days that we focus on. It's the MFL tournament and then the winter tournament, right? The two, and it's really just competition, right? But it's our jobs as leaders in our individual programs to foster culture, because it's not we can't lead, the board is responsible for putting these events together, right? It takes a lot of work, and they're going to be doing more culture building activities as from a fellowship perspective across teams in the MFL. But we as our own individual leaders in our own churches, we have to focus on these things in order for us to build the youth and build the community, because our goal should be not what we're going to do in the next 3 5 years. Our goal should be what we're going to do the next 10 15 20 years, or where our program is going to be. And that's what we should always be focusing on. So so doing things to foster culture, like a season kickoff meal, um, because of the events that happened this year with Josh, we had to change that a little bit. We wanted to be more supportive of one another. We There was events that we attended through the church to celebrate Josh, so it wasn't necessarily like a barbecue this year, or something that's it was a little more focused on remembrance of Josh, right? But through that, there was still culture and fellowship. And then at the end of the season, we'll do a barbecue after the season, just to kind of recognize players and talk through the trials and tribulations of retirement. There's so many odd things that happen on the day of retirement. Just ask Ronnie Curran. He can write a whole book on the weird things he does during retirement, right? But those are the things, like, it's the journey. Like, the journey is so important of how we get to the finish line, and where it ends almost doesn't even matter as much, right? Um, and through prayer, from a prayer perspective, we close practice with prayer and intentions. So anytime we're closing practice, we ask the team to raise up any intentions so we can just talk, like, kind of pray on it together. And because we know through various instances in our community that prayer is power, right? And the healing power of prayer, especially in the community, is something that we all have experienced, right? So we close prayer that way. Some new stuff going on this year. So first, is the Multi's Marauders program. So we've been trying to market it as much as possible on Instagram. But kind of going off the topic of how we only really meet for really focus on 2 competitive events a year, that's not necessarily fostering how we as a community connect, right? And one of the coolest ways we can do that is through our children. So we started a program. It's an hour before the Zero practice at Baronsfield, where we have some of our younger high school serial warriors who are looking to be leaders, who are running a youth program ages 6 through 13, for about an hour, and we just run through drills. We do flag football drills. We play maybe a little bit of scrimmage, some games like sharks and minnows. But it lasts about an hour. But the focus is really just to make sure that the kids are just honestly getting to know each other and getting to know the sport, right? I truly believe football is one of the most useful sports in your career, because you build chemistry through having to manage so many individuals on the field at a given time. There's no sport. I mean, you can make arguments about rugby, but there's no sport, in my opinion, that requires the level of coordination that football does for all 11 people on the field, for us seven, right? And I think learning those intangible skill sets through that sport at a young age is important. It's more than just violence and all that, right? So that's what we're teaching them, and we're also teaching them to learn and to learn each other and through the community, right? It's open to all, all churches within the MFL community. And honestly, if there's kids who are just interested in coming and playing, if you're not a part of the MFL community and you're just friends with people in the MFL community and you've heard about it, we're not going to turn you away. So reach out to one of the Zero captains if you have a child who's interested in it. We do require the parents to come to the practice, and it's not just a safety thing. It's also because we've noticed that when kids have their parents there, they're more engaged, and they feel more supported, right? Because you can never know, right? We're playing a sport, and having a parent there is also very important, right? So again, it's Sundays at 1 o'clock at Barron's Park in Elmhurst. And if you would like more information on that, just reach out to one of the serial captains. So myself, Jibu, Kevin, or Uni or George. And one of us will get that information to you. And it's also on our Instagram page as well. Another cause that's very important to our hearts is there is the Chicago Lymphoma Walk that's occurring on July 27th. This cause is very special to us, especially in the Syria community, because one of our beloved teammates on the women's team, Joanne Kunikanen, she was diagnosed with a very rare form of lymphoma this year, and she's going through the typical process with all the treatments and all that, which is very very hard. And seeing in that community just needs all the support they can get, whether it's emotional, financial. So on July 27th, and I'll post the link in here. It's a Joanne's. We have a team stronger together page. If you want, if that has more information on the lymphoma walk, and I just put it in the chat there. I hope you guys can get it. But if not, then we can send a link after the call as well. But the focus is on any forms of lymphoma, right? And the walk helps raise awareness and funding for research. So I just wanted to put a plug there that there's several individuals in the Syro community that will be attending that just to support our precious Joanne as she fights this very very rare version of lymphoma. I asked that and just to raise the awareness there. Like if you guys want to participate in the lymphoma walk, please go to the link for more information. But at a minimum, if you guys can please keep Joanne and her family in your prayers whenever just to extend God's healing hands on her and her family, give all the support that they can get, because this will be a very tough journey for her. But she's a strong one, so she's going to be awesome out the other side of it. So if you have any questions on any of these items, please reach out to any hero captains. Yeah, that's all I got. Thanks.
Mikey, again, thank you so much for sharing, especially with short notice, and really some cool things that you guys are doing for the team. And definitely we'll keep the team and Joanne in our prayers. Jess, if you can move on to the next slide. Some of the other things that are happening from a community perspective, Joel from the Marthoma team is running a speed and agility workshop. He reached out to us and asked if we could share that. So love to do that, especially for things that are just investing and pouring into our community. So his contact information is here. Also, you can catch him on Instagram. And if there's stuff going on that you want us to share, stuff that your team is doing, your church is doing, definitely we want to, help support the fellowship within your church and teams. So please email us at Gmail, send one of the board a message through the Instagram app as well. Jess, next slide, please. And then lastly, we talked about what's the board doing, what are we asking the leadership to do? I think it's only fair that we talk a little bit about, what are our expectations for our athletes. There's a leadership phrase that we use often: humble, hungry, and smart. We've got a derivative of that here: humble, hungry, and patient. So humble, just I think all too often we're held back by our pride and just being nervous to ask for help. So just let's be humble, let's get out there and seek help. Be hungry in terms of like taking that assistance and using it, and be patient. I think a lot of times, especially in our youth and when we're working with younger athletes, there's an expectation that things are gonna be different tomorrow, right? I think change takes time and takes proof, and that doesn't always happen immediately. So it's the next bullet point. Don't expect the ride to be easy. That's what I love about football. Football mimics so many aspects of life. And just because we put in more work in the office today doesn't mean we're going to get a promotion tomorrow, right? So we got to be consistent. We have to be, put in the work. Ask questions, seek to understand. A lot of times, what we, form this narrative in our head, this is happening because of X, Y, and Z. Especially in football, don't assume anything, right? Just ask questions, talk to your leaders, get a good feel for, why you're seeing what you're seeing or why you think what you think. And if it's not something you agree with, then challenge the status quo, but do it respectfully. I think as all of us are athletes, like it's awesome that in football we're in a pressure cooker. We gotta play and execute and deliver in 60 minutes. we don't have time to beat around the bush, and it forces tough conversations very quickly. So, do so, have them, and do it with respect, and I think the outcomes will always be positive. I want to ask everybody to share your experience with the MFL. Share it with your friends, your cousins. I think this is something that we want to grow. MFL has been amazing to me and for um, you know our community. So extend that opportunity to those in the community that that aren't participating for whatever reason. And if you're on this call or you're watching this video and you haven't played before, I would challenge you to just try. Don't let your fear or discomfort or not knowing the team or the captain keep you from getting out there and giving it a go. I think generally speaking, everyone who tries, who gets on the field, who comes to one practice, comes again and again, and it leads to just a whole nother community and network and people that care and are willing to welcome you in. So with that, I'll hand it off to um, Jess. Are you covering this?
Yeah, I got this, Jomi. Thank you. So thanks, Jomi. Thanks, Mikey, Sean. So to cover registration, we had just sent out a registration template for the captains to submit back to the MFL board. But just so everybody's aware, for the wider audience, I would expect these registration conversations to pick up in the next couple of weeks. If you don't know where to register, reach out to your team captain. If you don't know who your team captain is, reach out to the board and we'll point you in the right direction and see what we can do for you. So the tournament is going to be the second Saturday of August for consistency every year. This time around, it's going to be August 9th. The registration for the tournament is going to open on July 7th, so it'll open in just about 2 weeks, and it closes on July 14th at midnight. Registration is going to be considered complete once we receive both the team roster and full payment. So the payment is going to be $35 per player. If you submit early, there's a little bit of advantage there because you can make changes to your team roster, but there are no changes allowed come July 14th at midnight. So changes allowed up to 11:59 p.m. on July 14th. And the minimum age to be eligible is 15 years old by the day of the tournament. There's a caveat to the 15-year-old, anybody under 18. You just need to, if you're 15 through 17, you just need to have a signed consent form from a parent or legal guardian. And also to be eligible, you need to be Malayali Christian affiliated. And to kind of go into detail of what this means, players must be Malayali or married to a Malayali. All players must be affiliated with a physical Malayali Christian church from the approved church partner list in the next slide, and we'll cover what all of those are. And affiliation, we've kind of defined it as you can be affiliated to a church through your parents as the next line of lineage, through your own marriage, or through personal conversion. And personal conversion is a little bit more it's less concrete as in you've always been born into this community, you were raised there kind of. So if that is the form of affiliation, we may ask for some kind of letter of confirmation or certificate from the church, from a church leader. Usually if it's legitimate, then that it should be fairly quick and easy to produce. But if there's any trouble, let us know and we'll see what we can do for you. All players who are participating on the same team must belong to the same Malayali church. There are exceptions based on what churches can stand up teams together. So the approved church partner list is as shown on the screen. So Chicago Sierra Malabar and Sierra Malankara churches can partner together to form a team. The Chicago Pentecostal churches can form together. Chicago Canaanite churches, Orthodox and Jacobite churches, the Marthoma churches, CSI churches, and Detroit Marthoma churches can all form together. And the main change from prior years' summer tournaments to this year's is that we've now implemented a bit of a loose cap, but it's a hard cap if you have one team registered from a church. So with one team registered from a church for the men's 7-on-7, there's a hard cap of 28 players for that team. But to kind of encourage more for some of the bigger churches, more participation, if there are two or more teams being registered from a church, there is no cap on those teams. And for the summer 5-on-5 women's tournament, um, there are still no cap on the teams to encourage more participation. And for the winter tournament bullet points, these are continuations of the last go round from winter 2024. So no change here, but just wanted to call these out.
Jess, I think there's a typo in the winter women's 3-on-3. We'll update that in the chat.
Thanks, Jeremy. And for gameplay rules, I'll pass it over to John.
All right. So yeah, gameplay rules. Our official rule book is located on the website, the MFL.com. So go ahead and check it out there. So as a general rule, we don't change the rules leading up to the tournament. If we did, especially if it benefited a team, we wouldn't be doing our job of keeping things fair for everyone. So if you have any concerns, you want a rule change, any questions about them, let us know. We'll socialize it more broadly to discuss and make a decision. And we'll communicate that to everyone. So we could all plan for the next year if a rule has been changed. So as of right now, there hasn't been any like hard rule changes. But again, yeah, it's going to be on our website for the official rule books. So just a few bullet points here. Just I guess these are here because they're kind of like repeat offenders. So no swearing allowed during the tournament. It's a Christian tournament. Obviously, we're playing football. It's a physical sport. Things get heated, but there's kids on the sidelines, younger guys on the team. So just keep yourself accountable. Try to, you could yell all you want, but just try to, keep your language good there. No jewelry. Again, this seems to be a repeat issue. No jewelry whatsoever. No chains, no earrings, no anything else. They could potentially cause injuries. They have caused injuries in the past. So please just no jewelry. No eyeglasses. Sport goggles are allowed. No hard-billed hats. You are allowed to wear a hat, but you will need to wear it backwards. And go on to the next one there, Jess. Out-of-state teams, Detroit, pretty much regulars now. Dallas, North Carolina, we hope to see you guys come back again. We really encourage out-of-state teams to come out. The community, the board, we all welcome out-of-state teams that are interested in playing. If you guys have any interest or questions, don't hesitate to reach out. New York, I believe we might have had a few guys reach out from New York. We would love to see you this year, especially if anybody's listening now. Again, any questions, reach out to us, but we'd love to see you out. And yeah, we can go on to the next one here, Jess. All right, so recruitment and new player outreach. Since we kind of have like a bigger pool of players this year, whether you're desperate for players, low on numbers, or you already have a big team and you just want to bring more people into your community, we just wanted to share a few ways that we've heard that from other teams' experiences on how they've found new players. So one example at Ciro, a couple of captains would go to the 10th, 11th, and 12th grade Sunday school classes. They'd let the men and women there know that MFL exists and welcome them to come out to practice. They've mentioned how it was really surprising how many of those kids came out just to like hang out at practice and see what it was about. So Sunday school is a huge one. Church announcements and bulletins, seems very simple, but don't underestimate them, especially just with the point of, a lot of it's surprising how some of the people in the community, especially the younger kids, don't know that MFL exists. So just having that broad announcement to your church community is huge, especially just support for your team too. So definitely don't underestimate those. Um, Another one was one way we were able to find more women's teams last year. Was asking players who played in other tournaments. For example, the Kanawha women's team played volleyball together. Once they heard about the MFL, they were up to put a team together for football too. So, other venues, other sports, your weekly ball chats, stuff like that. So, like, spread the word around that way. And if you're a new player looking to get plugged into a team, feel free to reach out to us. We could like connect you with one of the captains. Any interest at all, if you feel like you're not associated with the community at all, any interest at all, reach out. We'll get you plugged into a team. I'll hand this over to Toby for MFL board updates.
Thank you, John. So we opened up applications for the MFL board earlier this year, and we got a lot of applications. So thank you to all of those who applied. I think last week we wrapped up our last interview. So now we have to just go through every interview and probably follow up, and we'll hopefully announce our next new MFL board member soon. I'm not entirely sure when that will be, but hopefully soon. Next slide, Jess.
Toby, minor correction. I think we have one more interview later this week.
Yep.
Okay, great. And then now we'd like to open up to any questions. Feel free to use the Zoom chat. I also can see chats on the Instagram feed. So if you're on the feed, feel free to send a question there. I'll start off with a question from Leslie. She asked if the women's winter tournament is going to be 3-on-3 from now on.
So I can answer that. Right now, that's the plan, Leslie. Good question. I think we've struggled to get interest prior years when we've approached it from a 5-on-5 perspective. I think there's a win in that it's intended to be kind of separate from the summer tournament, both for men and women, and give people an opportunity to take on leadership roles and kind of break away from the summer tournament structure. Not to say that we've got to continue in that route, but that's the plan for now.
I'll give this question to Jess. I think this is from Mikey. What was the motivation for implementing a 28-person cap, and how does a cap in general promote fellowship?
Yeah. So I think the motivation to land on 28 in particular was we definitely didn't want to hamstring any particular team. So for 7-on-7 in the men's tournament, it pretty much gives you 7 starters all playing one way with a designated backup if your team can facilitate that. And for areas that don't, you might be a little bit more deep in certain positions and slamming maybe like quarterback, but that was the general outlook for 28. And in terms of promoting fellowship, that's where there's a little bit of an incentive to have if not to necessarily police like captain's choices or anything like that, but if there's a way to get further engagement with some of the players that might not uh, get as much participation or the MFL experience, if they can have that more truly or more immersive by being on a separate team, but still representing the same church. I think that was the goal, to incentivize more teams in participation, and that's just on tournament day. That doesn't mean anything of, you're barred from practicing um, with these people. You're barred from it. It doesn't mean you're barred from scrimmaging. So I think um, going forward in the kind of like the 10 to 20-year range that, Mike, you were talking about, is just how do we want the tournament to grow? And one of those ways we're kind of put into ideation is like, if we can have more teams. I think that might be the way to go. Hopefully that answers the question for
It
the time
does.
being.
Thanks, Janice. That's a good answer. Thank you. And then one request. So we're going to be one of those teams that churches that has more than one team this year. Um, so with multiple teams, and you guys, some of you guys have been on 0 teams where we've had multiple teams, right? It's tough from a leadership perspective to manage 2 teams, right?
Yep.
Is there a way for the scheduling? If I know this may not be an option for playoffs, but for scheduling, is there an opportunity for us to, if a team has more than one team, if we can have them not play at the same time? That way, we can kind of share resources from a leadership perspective for both teams, because that's one of the things we've struggled with in past years, is that we'll be playing at the same time, and then the one of the teams is lacking leadership, because I mean, you're like, you want to have as many leaders as you can, right? And we're training leaders to build them up with some of the younger guys, but like, you still, like, some of those old heads, you just need them game day, right? Because those decisions you make on the field are, you have seconds to make decisions, right? So the one thing I ask is, if there is a way that we can have, if there's a church with multiple teams, if they cannot play at the same time, that would be very helpful.
Yeah, great feedback, Mikey. And I think honestly, John, you can keep me honest here too. This has been a lot of feedback that we've gotten from the women's side as well, where their coaches might be playing at the same time as them. And so, yeah, I think optimizing the scheduling. I don't know if there's going to be a way we can make it perfect, but if that's definitely been on the forefront. So we're taking closer consideration this year.
Just
Yep, because
one
we
thing.
were. Oh, sorry, Sean. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in just on scheduling, is that usually what we do is how the teams landed last year is however they landed last year as the seeds going into the next tournament. And then we do the snake format to determine the brackets. So if there's 2 teams for 0 and they didn't play last year, usually any new teams go to the bottom. So the only thing I could think of doing is that if there was like 2 new teams and 0 being one of them, then it's kind of like a toss up and kind of throw them into the opposite bracket. But that'd be that'd be the only thing I could think of where we could kind of accommodate.
Yep, yeah, anything you guys can do, because it's just really hard to split those kind of resources. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Becky.
All right, we got some technical questions for the 5-on-5 tournament. Can we have a running back run on a 2-point conversion at the 10-yard line?
Yes. So I can answer, or John, if do you want to cover those?
Well, a quick answer is yes for me. I don't know if you want to elaborate from there,
Yeah,
but yeah, running's allowed within the 10-yard mark. Yeah,
yeah,
as long as it's a handoff. Yeah.
Yeah, 2 point conversions always has you could run on 2 point. You just can't run on 1 point for winter rules.
Mhm.
And then the second question was, can corners cross the line of scrimmage if it's handed off behind the line?
No.
Okay.
Well, let me rephrase it. When you say corner, it kind of implies that they're not playing D line. Anybody who's behind the line, the rush line, can cross at any time. So I think that's maybe a better way to answer the question. So, there's usually a ref that says, here's the rush line. They walk 7 steps back. So if the corner is lined up back there, then they can rush at any given time. But just because there's a handoff someone inside that line cannot cross the line of scrimmage. They have to wait until the ball carrier crosses.
Okay, and then the final technical question, will end zones be smaller this year and the same size across fields?
Um, I don't think so. So what happens is we take the field dimensions, we give them to the park district, and they measure and paint the fields per our specs. In some cases it may be a foot off here or there. We know that there was a concern about some of the fields being off, but when we went back and measured, I didn't notice that it was significantly deviated from the posted dimensions. So no, I think they're probably going to be the same as last year or close.
Thank you. Yep. Thanks for answering those questions. I know they're really technical, but there was a lot of back and forth on our team. So thank you.
Cool.
Did you have any questions on Instagram?
I have one more question on Zoom from Matt Chaco. If a team already registered their 28 players and one of their players get injured prior to the tournament date, can a new player take up their spot, or does that team have to play with 27? And the answer is they have to play with 27. So after July 14th at midnight, no changes are allowed to a team's roster. I'm going to check Instagram. I don't see any comments on a live feed. Yeah, I think we've answered everything.
Now you got one more in the Zoom chat.
Okay. Let me see.
9:37 p.m.
Okay, Mikey, we mentioned that there was only one major change, a cap of 28 players. However, it looks like we are deviating from the physical church requirement. What what was the primary motivation for that change, and what had changed from the board's strong opposition of that change based on the Marthama request at the end of last season?
I could take this one. So one thing that did change in our rules is that before this year we allowed the merger form request. And so essentially, for those who don't know, if there's a church that has a small team or a small church that can't put up a team or is struggling with putting up a bare minimum team, then they have the option to submit a merger request to merge with the sister church. And so what we essentially did, and so last year the purple team, or 2 years ago, submitted a request for a merger. And so we had to evaluate whether or not they were small enough or they struggle enough in order to merge with the sister team. And there were and the Martha churches were the last ones that kind of didn't really submit a merger request for the sister churches. And so if the purple team was going to move over and was small enough now and was struggling for players to submit a merger request for a sister church, then almost every single one of those partner lists would have submitted merger requests for those sister churches. So in order to simplify the rules and make it less bureaucratic, we're just like, hey, these are the things. We're taking out all the uncertainty of like whether or not your request is going to be approved, and say you can merge with these churches, you can form a team with these churches. Here's a list. You don't need the merger request rule anymore, and we'll just simplify and streamline it going forward.
Yeah, thanks. I wasn't sure what the reasoning was. And it seemed like they were pretty strong against it last year. So I was just kind of confused at what changed. But I think that makes sense from an administrative perspective. I think that if churches want to combine, because I mean, the league's getting really competitive, right? If churches want to combine based because they don't feel like they can compete, I think that just shows to the league, right? That it's becoming very competitive and people are developing, which is awesome. So I'm very excited for that. Yeah, I was just curious as to the reason why, because I don't think there was any additional conversations after that meeting we had last year, unless I missed it. So I was just curious to see the reasoning why. But yeah, I get it, totally get it. Like if churches feel that they need to combine to stay competitive, that's totally cool.
Yeah, great question, Mikey. Thank you.
All right. If that's it, I think we can wrap up. Anybody's feel free to uh, unmute and share your thoughts, but I'll give it 30 more seconds and I think we're done.
I do have one question for the Detroit Marshall Church. So we're in a position where, we are growing, we're young, and but we're not big enough to have two teams quite yet. And so I understand the concept of the 2018 cap. For me, um, the real issue is, we're in that in between phase where, again, we have some young players that are coming in. We have some older youths that were able to re-engage with our church and have been part of the team. So is there a little bit of a gray area if, we're at 30 or 32 that it'll be permissible? Just so I'm not put in a position where I have to cut someone from our team because I understand the concept as far as, you can still practice, still participate, but there is a deeper connection when, you're on the team, you're on the sideline together, you're, wearing the uniform. So is there a possibility of there being a little bit of a gray area where that could be permissible? Because even at 32, you still can't have two teams. If we split into two, the second team wouldn't have enough for subs. So I understand in the grand scheme of things, if it's like, 40, 45, 40 and 35, I can understand that. But could there be a little bit of a gray area?
And just to add to that, I just wanted to kind of say also, you know, being an out of state team, the commute and drive to come to Chicago, try to commit a weekend, it's not easy for us to try to get every single person to participate. And so, it takes a lot for us to make a 5 hour drive to try to come to a team, to come to this tournament. And so we have guys that are genuinely wanting to be part of a team. And I would even say it's fair to say for us last year, we had 31, I think, or 32. Every single person on our team, we made every intention for them to all be a part, to have played, to have some time played into it. So it's not that we're just trying to stack a team. We're just trying to maximize the opportunities for everyone that wants to be part of an MFL, be part of the MFL community. So just wanted to add that on to what Sean had mentioned. And this is Shane, sorry, from Detroit.
Yeah,
Hey,
I
Shane and
mean,
Sean. Oh, just real quick, John. Shane and Sean, I kind of shared I had a similar, um, I emailed the board on something similar, and I totally get. We shared your kind of concern. And I think we're kind of from the same place where it's like when you're at that like tweener stage at like 32, like is there a gray area, right? Because like if you think about it, so we have 14, right? So if you think about the numbers, so 14 starters, if you want to have one backup of lineman, that's 15 players, one backup of D lineman, 16. So when you start having and putting like one backup for a group of guys, that number starts to add up, right? Um, so I mean, Sierra's going to have two teams because we like last year we kind of hit home that hey, we're not going to have two teams unless we have adequate linemen. And what this year, like people linemen came out in droves, right? I think there's an opportunity here where like maybe we can have a discussion as a group as like leaders and like hey, like the Detroit team has 30 players, right? And maybe like five of them aren't going to want to play or are just coming for the ride, right? Um, why not just let them join the team and come roll with 32, 33 people for circumstances like that, right? And this is to the board. Like, I think that there's an opportunity here where like maybe we could just come together as leaders, listen to Shane and Sean's like type of request, and maybe we could just, I don't know if we need to vote on it, but just have a discussion about it. And I think that makes sense. Like 30 players is tough to put two teams together because then you put two 15-person thin teams out there, right? So I just want to say, Sean, Shane, I hear you. Yeah, sorry, John.
yeah, no worries. No, I think it's a great discussion, and we really appreciate you guys' feedback. Um, the 28, it wasn't just a random number. We kind of like compared the numbers from previous years, total number of athletes for each team. I'm not saying it was like a complete, data analysis, but like 28 is where that sweet spot was. But this is the first year we have like kind of a hard cap, and I totally understand like um those situations where well I got like 29 to 32 players. I don't want to cut anybody, and I completely understand that. And to your point too, I don't know if that was Sean, but there's might have a few guys on a team that are just there for the ride. We still encourage that, but I get what you mean by there's different energy when you're actually part of the team, you're suited up. It's definitely something that we're going to continue to discuss. It's not ending here. I think a cap at this point is necessary since the tournament's getting very competitive, just to have some sort of level playing field, especially when you look at like smaller churches that could barely produce 28. But I think it's a great discussion. In terms of like the gray area, like we set the rules for this year. So like right now we have to stick with the 28, unfortunately. But it's definitely something that we want your feedback. We want to make this the best for everybody. So it's something that we would definitely take into consideration, like for the next summer tournament. But for this year, I'd say like the rules are kind of in place at this point. But I mean, you guys, older board members can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's typically our stance on that.
Yeah, I think that was well put, John. I think if you guys want to discuss it further, we can offline. I'm happy to talk to you guys about it. I think, as John stated, that's the rule for this summer. I think speaking transparently, I opted for a smaller roster. I mean, in the earlier years, we capped it at 17. So I think on the captain side, there's a desire to, build depth and create a competitive team. On the athlete side, at the end of the day, kids want to play. And I get that there's 1,000 points on either side of that. Do they want to play if they're if they're not competitive and so on? And I'm not looking to have that debate, but definitely, there are teams that show up with 40, even 50 guys, and I'm not pointing the finger at any given team. I'm talking about over the past 10 years. And that's just not the experience we want for our athletes. So that's part of the reason, in addition to the competitiveness, that we decided to try out the cap. And again, we're open to discussing and getting your feedback, especially after the experience of this summer.
And we got a follow-up question from Mevin, but I don't fully understand it. Mevin,
I think I think I can answer that question. So Mevin asked, "Are we opposed to the idea of every team having a 28-player cap, not just the churches with one team?" And I think what he's referring to is that there is this potential thing that an inherent unfairness, because if a team has around 28 players, they can't have two teams together. They have to go out with 28. If one of the bigger churches, puts 15 players on one team and then puts 40 players on another team, then they could potentially do that. Right. And so I think what I've been saying is that because of that possibility, would it be are we opposed to the idea of doing 28 across the board? So that way we guarantee, every team faces that same cap. And I would say that,
By the way, that's exactly what he means.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's definitely something we've talked about, and it's kind of on our radar. So no, I would say we're not opposed to it. I think again, we want to give this season a run with the cap as it is, and then we'll take the group's feedback after the tournament, and discuss if we want to make additional changes or not.
I'm just curious as to why that's a concern from the one who raised the question.
I mean, I think we've gotten input. Mikey, if you're asking Mevin, you're welcome to answer. I think there's concerns of like the teams that are just the churches that are so much bigger, showing up with two sets of 35 guys. And for a team that's barely putting together 20 or 22, definitely the advantage goes to the bigger team. So for example, if we just added up all the heads that came out from Marthama last year, Marthama Chicago had 3 teams, and if let's just say that there were 60 athletes on the field altogether. If we split them, now we got 2 teams of 30 or 33, and that that extra 5 heads, maybe it makes a difference. I think that's where it's coming
Oh,
from.
not that, Joey. There was like I think they said that there was a concern that a church would take advantage of the rule and put one team with 40 and one team with 15 if they had 55 guys. That's what I heard.
Oh, well, Sean's a bit of a conspiracy theorist, so
Oh, okay.
I was giving an example. Yeah, it could
Oh, is
be.
that you, Sean? Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I take that back. I thought that was the concern. Cause I was like, if you're a church that's gonna has 55 people and you're gonna only put 15 people on one team to have one strong 40-person team, then come on, that's just ridiculous. You're not doing it for fellowship. You're just doing it to have one 40-person team, and you're leaving that team with 15 out to dry. So if that is your plan, don't do that.
Well, that's oh hey everybody, sorry, it's not that. I mean, that's not. It might not be the 40 person team decision, right? If you have, just going off of Jomi's example, if you look at the Martha team, they have the Chargers, they have their set team. It kind of seems like it's their kind of friend group, which is great. And then if you did combine the CMTC team six and then the Lombard team, if you combine those two teams, it's a pretty hefty, it's kind of, it's not out of reason to see that happening, but it is kind of an advantage, right? If we can all see that.
Man, I'm hoping they're not doing that, but if they, I don't know, that's a good point. But I mean, that seems like it's not very conducive of fellowship to me. But everyone has their own, right?
I think it's a fair question. I think I've heard a few people it is just because of the potential loophole. Obviously, we would hope you don't like send 10 guys out there to get slaughtered just so you could, create another team. I think it's pretty obvious what we're trying to do. And, if we were to see that happen as a board, it's not something that we're just going to punch them through. We're going to ask questions about it. So we hope we don't have to make another rule to prevent that from happening. But I think it's a fair question because of that potential loophole. But I mean, they got
Yeah.
to go through us first.
Awesome. Thanks, fellas. I mean, I know for this year it kind of sounds pretty straightforward and stuff, but just for the future. But I appreciate the time, you guys.
Okay. Unless there are any other questions, we'll go ahead and wrap up. Again, I want to thank everybody for calling in and for your questions and for your inputs. To Mikey and Justin for sharing. And we'll see you guys at the next town hall. Thank you.
Thanks for hosting, guys.
Thank you.